We are going to move right along. I'm very much personally looking forward to the next panel, which is called Shared Visions, Charting Ukraine's Recovery Path Together. Very generously, this segment will be moderated by my very dear friend of the last 20 years, Natalie Yaresko, who came in from DC via Detroit. And Natalie is the former Minister of Finance of Ukraine from 2014 to 16 and the Managing Director at EY Parthenon. So thank you, Ms. Yaresko. On the panel, we will have Olya Zhikova, Deputy Minister of Finance of Ukraine, Dmytro Natalucha, Chairperson of the Committee on Economic Development of the Verkhovna Rada, Parliament of Ukraine, Roman Kachur, Alternate Executive Director, World Bank Group, and Roman Komendant, Deputy Head of State Agency for Restoration and Development of Infrastructure of Ukraine. I ask you all to come to the stage, and Ms. Yaresko, for you to take over.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to be here and to see so many friends, personal and friends of Ukraine. We are today hoping to fulfill several objectives with this panel. First, we really want to provide you a clear vision, a clear description of where Ukraine is today and how the term recovery, economic recovery, what that means to Ukraine today. Recovery has meant different things over the past 3 years because Ukraine has been in different situations. So we're going to try and bring you up to date. Second, we're going to try and illuminate as much of the work that the government of Ukraine has completed and accomplished to date and the tools that are available for all of you. So much has been done to make this easier for investors, to make this easier and better for partners, as well as for Ukrainians. We want to discuss a little bit how EU accession will make the Ukrainian economy stronger and larger for those of you that have, again, economic interests in using Ukraine as an export platform. And then finally, we want to inspire you. We want to inspire you to act now, not to wait. There's no reason to wait. Ukraine isn't waiting. You don't need to wait. Use caution, sure, but not wait. And those are two different things entirely. So we're going to start with my colleague, Deputy Minister Zhikova. May I ask you, given there's been 3 years of full-scale wars and 11 years, it's the 10th anniversary of me becoming minister was yesterday. So it's been 11 years of Russia's overall war. Can you describe to us what is Ukraine's vision for economic recovery today? Where are we? Recovery and rebuilding, two different things.
Thank you, Natalie. And I think that this is the core question to actually lead the path to outline where we are and what we are planning for. Because actually this war has become a bifurcation point for all of us. And this time is taken as possibility to foster a positive transformation, changes for sure. Ukraine now is different. And this is the point where we start moving towards the European integration, towards the structural reforms which help ground the basis for foreign partners to trust Ukraine. And despite ongoing war, we actually managed to shift from 2-week budget planning when the war started to full-fledged midterm budgeting. We are keeping one-digit inflation since January 2023. We are not printing money. We are not on the toll of monetary financing. Not a single payment to pensioners or teachers or doctors have been delayed or postponed. And this is during the war, and I think all the things are not, the peculiarities of the country under the war conditions in a traditional, normal way. So our vision is based on the very critical principles that we follow on every action we take as the government. Responsibility. So as of now, Ukraine is responsible for implementation of structural reforms and conditionalities which would allow not only easier path towards EU integration, but also to show the partners that the commitment is there. Trust, which we have been building prior to Ukraine for many years, but now these things fostered a lot, and we understand that a single mistake might cost a lot or everything. So trust is also the core basis for our vision of the development. Transparency and accountability. Here we put together many new tools and instruments so that to show that each and every funding coming to Ukraine is actually not for the use of the purpose on the short term, but actually it fuels the plans towards the development. But where does the development comes? I think that over now we are working towards three main issues. First, to maintain macroeconomic stability for the partners, for investors, to have the predictability even under the war conditions. Secondly, we are undertaking critical recovery and we rebuild what we can now. As Natalie said very rightly, we've squeezed ourselves in time and we do not have enough time to actually, lead on broad discussions, but actually to do what we can now and to remain trusted partners so that we receive additional help in hand to rebuild further. And the third, implementing structural reforms. So these three core tiers actually, I think, give the ground and basis for Ukraine. And this is a kind of the balancing while we are working toward future self-sufficiency, because we are not eager to rely fully on donor support for many years ahead. At the same time, while doing this and while planning this future self-sufficiency, we are having the challenge to survive and keep the economy stable. So to achieve this, we already secured more than $100 billion of donor funds since February 2022. And this helps us to keep the economy afloat, to cover the critical social expenditures, to give help in hand to our citizens, and to actually to work on the increase of their own revenues so that we are getting back to even pre-war levels surpassed. And here I think that the critical point is about understanding that Ukraine has enough courage and commitment and actually a very bond understanding of what the vision is and on what principles it is based on. But at the same time, we need to align with a partner's vision, which should be based on the same principles and values so that we anchor it not only under the programs which allow Ukraine to be a trusted partner, like IMF, EFF arrangement, like EU facility, like World Bank, DPOs. All these programs actually help us to be better in terms of the reforms, which historically wise, some of them were quite critically, politically difficult to implement. But this is the right time to do this. And for your understanding, I want to leave you with the understanding that Ukraine will not move the other way. So we will use all our intentions and resources to actually have this path, not a single other path, with regards to EU integration, with regards to building back better, etc. But at the same time, the sophisticated approach towards having the holistic view of what are the core problems we need to solve and what are the assistance which might be of essence for this is something that we need to keep on agenda and not to leave the focus out of it.
Thank you very much, Aya. So you can see that the Ukrainian government is very focused on creating trust. The very, very base of all relationships, whether it's with society, with other governments, with donors, with international organizations, it's trust. And they're trying to do this on the basis of transparency and a commitment to reforms across multiple organizations and owned, as they say, owned by the Ukrainian government. So we're in a good place if we can just end the war peacefully and with justice. I'm going to ask Roman Commandant, who is the deputy head of the State Agency for Restoration and Development of Infrastructure of Ukraine, to help us figure out what does this agency do, what does it not do, because its role has changed over the past 3 years, and it's still changing. It's important, but I don't know that everyone in the business sector really understands how to work with it, what it does, what it doesn't do. So, Roman, educate us.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, Agency for Restoration. We are a young agency which was created only 2 years ago, but with a huge experience. Because before we was a state road agency, we operated more than 40,000 kilometers of roads and more than 6,000 bridges. We have a huge experience in implementing nationwide projects. So our mission is to be a reliable partner for our people, for donors, for businesses, for our gromadas, to have a clear understanding that we don't want to, grab a lot of projects to implement. We want to show our experience in different ways. So for today, we have different nationwide projects, such as water supply in Nikolaev region, in Dnipro region, after Kakhovka dam was destroyed. For today, we defend our energy sector on 22 substations. Also, we're planning to implement a huge national project for social housing. But anyway, as Olga said, that we have to build a trust. We have to do it in a transparent way. I'm a deputy of the head, and also I am a chief digital transformation officer. So my role is to implement digital instruments to show how we can report transparency and to implement digital tools such as DREAM. We have our inner platform in our agency, which has an old name, eRoad, where we can see now online information about every project, what is going on with them. And also, we are planning to implement a lot of digital transparent tool to show people, to show investors, to show donors how we manage with this support. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Roman. What I'd like to just make sure everyone's aware is this agency isn't responsible for doing everything. That would be impossible for any agency. It really is the agency that focuses on urgent projects, national, across local government projects like that water facility that's going to provide water after the dam was blown up, or things that are extremely politically or economically important that have to be showcased. It doesn't mean that local governments, local communities won't be involved in their own recovery. They will be. You hear a great deal about local government being at local communities being at the very root of everything. They are. This doesn't supersede that. It basically helps work above and around it. I'm going to ask Dmytro Natalucha, who is the chairperson of the Committee on Economic Development of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, to talk to us a little bit about how important EU accession is, what does it mean for lawmakers, what does it mean for the Verkhovna Rada, and why should this make a difference to investors?
Thank you, Natalia. Thank you, everyone. It's great to be back. So I'm going to start from why economics became critical during this war, and it became paramount. From the broader sense, it's about a pivot of what power is. So in our opinion, what happened in 2022 was that before 2022, power was all about economics, right? It didn't matter on the quantity of your population, the size of your military, anything. What mattered was how economically developed you were and how much power you were able to project thanks to that development. So countries with small territory and small population were able to project an incredible amount of power precisely because they were economically developed. Now in 2022, Russia challenged that view. They said, listen, we don't care about how sophisticated your army is, how progressive is your economics, how technological is your country. What matters to us is demographics. So as long as we will have enough people to just hold a Kalashnikov in hand, running towards a tank, in the end we will overwin because somebody will get there and throw a grenade inside. And basically what it turned out to become is a challenge, is a fight between economics and demographics. Because we haven't seen quite a sophisticated Russian army since the very beginning, have we? It was rather basic. The problem was always and still is that they are able to outnumber each and every country in the EU. And let's take it even further. If Putin proves his point, if demographics prevails over economics, then we're living in a very dangerous world. Because one can hardly outmatch the population of China, Russia, India, Northern Korea, Iran, and so on and so forth. So then, with the development of this war, they realized that they have to use technologies as well. But the core is still manpower. And that is why we have to prove them wrong. That is why we have to prove them that it matters how developed we are and how cooperative we can be, regardless of our own populations and our own territories. That is why the EU is critical for us. That is why with all combined economies, we should prove that we still can prevail over those countries of the new axis, let's call it. And for us, that is why it is so important, because we look forward to become a part of the supply chains of the European Union, a part of the production machine of the European Union. We have the critical raw materials that are required to attend this new armaments race, weapons race. We have cobalt, we have titanium, we have lithium, we have all that the EU needs. So, and we, most of all, we have the human resources. We have the human resources with an incredible amount of experience. From the EU, what we can take, and we are taking it, is able to structure and to see things in the long term. Unfortunately, within the 30 years of time, there has been a lot of short-termism in our policy planning, and I give you that. We know our flaws, but that is, a two-way street, and that is why for us, becoming a member of the EU is not just a matter of economics, it's just not a matter of trade. It's a matter of survival, because we understand that just winning this war by ourselves, it's impossible. And probably not just for Ukraine, but also for any country within the EU or in the rules-based society. So that is why it is so important for us. So on the Parliament side, I'm a member of the steering committee of the EU investment framework, and what we're doing is trying to convince our European partner to have a fresh look at how and why they should support Ukraine, not just to make it stable and to rebuild it, but to re-engineer the way the Ukrainian economy works, to identify new economic drivers, like, for instance, the mill tax. The mill tax, that is something that is already driving the Ukrainian economy very much so, but unfortunately that cannot officially be sponsored by any European money, because they have that limit back from the 90s, if I'm not mistaken. And this is what we're really working on, trying to change the mindset, trying to change the approach, and trying to persuade them that there is a new economy in place. Unfortunately, it's something that we were not asking for, and nobody was asking for, but it's already there, and we cannot ignore it, us in general. And this is where Canada steps in, by the way, because you guys have taken good note of this, and a Canadian company called Rochelle Defense Solutions that was supplying armed vehicles to Ukraine just 6 months ago decided to build a factory in Ukraine. And this is precisely what I'm talking about, right? Understanding potential, understanding the future, understanding what this war is really about. This war is not just about values, which is very important. This war is not about the lifestyle, which is very important. But this war is about proving that economics still prevails over demographics.
Thank you very much. I have the pleasure of introducing a very close friend, dear person, and the second Roman on our panel, Roman Kachur, who represents Ukraine at the World Bank. And he's the alternative executive director at the World Bank. And the World Bank, in fact, has been one of the largest and the quickest, which is really not its reputation, supporters of Ukraine since February 22nd, 2024. Roman, can you tell us, we're at an inflection point now. Things are not where we expected them to be when you did your first risk analysis and your first damage reports. Recently, Vice President Anna Berde was in Ukraine, was in Kiev, and she noted that we have to prepare Ukraine for tomorrow and the day after. Can you just tell us a little bit about what that vision means? What are the next steps? What are the priorities?
Thank you, Natalie, and it's a great pleasure to be here with such an audience. I was with Anna Berde in Kyiv actually 10 days ago. We met with President Zelensky, we met with Prime Minister, and the World Bank has been standing with Ukraine since the day one. And indeed, what you are asking on this panel basically to all of us is how to navigate in this in the world of when the uncertainty is great, all the geopolitical uncertainty, not and enhanced by the Russia's aggression against Ukraine. So I would like to bring 2 points how to navigate this environment in Ukraine. And the first one is EU. EU has become for Ukraine an inflection point. We call it a political magnet. Now all the political process in Ukraine is being aligned with the EU integration. Political leadership, President, Prime Minister made a bold statement to make Ukraine EU ready by end of 2025. So any piece of legislation that is being adopted in Ukraine, any kind of regulation, you may wonder which way it will turn out, it's now being aligned with the EU integration. So potentially, as we will be getting closer to the EU, this will be a huge upside for the Ukrainian companies because they will become a part of EU market, they will have access to EU market, the valuation will become as a EU market. We cannot tell when exactly this happens, but this process is happening right now, as being aligned right now. Second, my second point is that Ukraine is changing very fast. You may not notice, and it may be a little bit counterintuitive, but all the financing that is coming to Ukraine is coming with some conditionalities attached, either from EU, from US, from IMF or the World Bank, all has some kind of conditionalities. So just for this 2024, Ukraine officially committed in the loan agreement, in the grant agreement, to implement more than 300 conditionalities and 500 indicators. It may be confusing to hear all these numbers, and the World Bank supported government of Ukraine. We create the tool, it's called the Matrix of Reform, where you can go online, it's on a public access, just Google Matrix of Reform, and you can see all the reforms Ukraine is implementing just now. And the Ministry of Finance is leading this work. They have the IT tool to make it basically a live process, which is being updated as Ukraine commits to a new reforms or some other conditionalities are being implemented. So you can see by sectors, you can see by types of EU indicators, so in different dimensions, you can see what is actually happening in Ukraine, where it is driving in the reform process. And also, as we will be moving forward, we exactly don't know when the war will end, but definitely after the hostilities are over, after the Ukraine victory, Ukraine will no longer be like before the war. And also here I want to make two points on that too. First, the market forces will be driving the change in Ukraine, and we see it happening now. So the industries are shifting. Those industries which dominated in the past most likely will change. They will not dominate in the future. We also see a huge demographical change as the people are moving from east towards the west. Towards the west, a lot of refugees and IDPs, uncertainty who will return. But these market forces will be driving change in Ukraine. And again, a bit counterintuitive, but some areas are actually economically booming in the West versus before the war. City of Lviv has almost 30% more population than it used to have before. They have more revenues in the budget. A lot of industries are relocating towards the West. So this creates an opportunities to make those shifts. Second point is, by the nature of war, by these forces, Ukraine is becoming more efficient. And let me bring just couple of examples. The first one, energy. As Russia started attacking the energy infrastructure and this Soviet-built, highly centralized, people started to figuring out how we live. No one wants to stay without the energy. So we do see a lot of renewables project picking up. World Bank is supporting many of them. People are considering a decentralized energy supply. So we had the Minister Lee speaking this morning about Ontario and others. So we are very much interested in having this new technologies, new solutions, more advanced type of smart grids in Ukraine that Ukraine will have after the war. And another example is labor. As we see more and more people are mobilized in the front lines, Ukraine needs to become more productive, to use less labor input to deliver the output. The participation of women in reskilling and different types of engagement of more productive use of labor force. So all these things are happening, and the country will be more ready for the change when the hostilities are over. And I'll be happy to talk about more like financing and specific things a little bit later on. Thank you.
So what we want to leave with you on this one is that if in the past you really didn't know which way Ukraine was going to go, right? We had peaks and we had valleys. I'm unfortunately old enough to have been there for the 30 years, and I've seen many peaks and many valleys. What I think is different now is that the war, in a sense, has not forced us to have a clear direction, but it's straightened out all of our desires and all of our priorities. And if that was not clear before to Ukrainian people, to Ukrainian government, it's clear today. The direction is clear. It's not that it's not predictable. We talk about this war being unpredictable, and the war part of it is, but the path of Ukraine is not. It is actually the most predictable path that it's been on in these 30 years. And so that is very, very important. And the tools, like this reform matrix, can tell you where that path is going, literally, quarter by quarter. We're going to come back to the Deputy Minister, and I'm going to ask her to help us understand a little bit more about what the government has done to enable the environment for recovery, and how can people who want to be a part of this recovery participate.
Actually, to reflect what Roman said on reform matrix, this is part of the story for giving a very clear picture to the partners where we are, what we do, how we implement things, to see the track record on each and every reform, but also to put discipline on those responsible. So altogether, this tool, and we are glad to be a well-crafted digitalized state that made it possible to have this reform matrix as efficient tool and being put together in quite a short period of time. It also gives confidence to partners, because actually you do not need to have a direct bilateral counteractions. You simply see the whole picture in general, and partners also have some kind of a disciplined effect here, because when the war started, we didn't have the plan, who does what. Now with all these 300 plus conditionalities, we are not overlapping. So the partners, the IFIs, each and every knows what reform particular IFI is focused on, or a particular government is keen to see as the implemented one on the Ukrainian ground. With regards to the preconditions to be more attractive, we started almost a year ago, together with our partners, with the expertise, with the very best experience other countries had, the system of public investment management. This is the new, I would say, new philosophy for Ukraine to take lead on how investments should be managed and what tools we use to prioritize. Because the needs are dramatically big, and Roman probably will touch base on how the rapid damage assessment is being done by the World Bank, which actually really helps us to actually show what the damages have been done, what the economic effect of it, what is the loss of the GDP, etc. But the whole idea of public investment management system in Ukraine, with a very clear prioritization of what projects are considered to be the priority projects and which are most critically needed for the time being or in midterm, it gives a very grounded base for these preconditions to be for Ukraine to be more attractive. So the PIM system works under the Investment Council, chaired by Prime Minister and co-chaired by 3 line ministries, which are Ministry of Development, Finance and Economy. And the logic behind is that we create the system of single project pipeline where the priorities are structured in a sequence and in the scale needed for the short period and midterm period. We've done it within a year almost, and we are on the initial stage of launching it in full scale. But I think this is also one of the new developments which would positively help the partners to understand what Ukraine needs and how to match each and every mandate and funds with these needs. These are only a couple of those samples which actually are new to us with regards to implementation of these tools. But again, as I said, we have a profound expertise provided by the partner governments and the IFIs on making it in future a benchmark for others. So actually what we do now might serve as a very profound benchmark of efficiency, transparency and accountability, and a very clear picture on actual prioritization of what the country should do investment-wise, project-wise. And I think we are walking the right path on this as of now.
I think the world agrees. Ukraine was recently named number 5 in the world most digitalized government. You can do things in Ukraine that are not possible in the United States, Canada, you name it. Can't do it. One of those things you've all probably heard of, DIA. We've just told you about the reform matrix and the PIM. I'm going to ask Roman number one, to please tell us a little bit about DREAM. DREAM is a system set up specifically for recovery.
Yes, but firstly, I want to add about the previous question about the human capital. That according to the situation in Ukraine, for today, we have to make a condition to people to come back to Ukraine because it's our people, it's our resources, and it's our brain, it's our future. Thanks for these people, our people. In Ukraine, we have a lot of different platforms, such as DREAM. But firstly, I want to tell you about the first platform which was created after this huge invasion.